The faction supporters cannot agree on what to do next following the mass resignations of the 4 vice presidents, including the chairman, last Friday. Meanwhile, the Rise faction is said to be stepping up their underground meetings with their key supporters and social media activists. Tyrone, all this against the backdrop of what took place last Friday with the elections of Paulwell, Crawford, McNeil, Phillips, and Crystal Tomlinson.
Crystal Tomlinson as PNP Royal President. Massive development, which underscores, Sutcliffe, the problems bedeviling the embattled People's National Party. The PNP's General Secretary, Dr. Dayton Campbell, while speaking with us last Friday, that is, on Nationwide at 5, said he believes that the party is in good standing and there is no need for alarm or concern. But the former chairman, Philip Paulwell, says there's work to be done as the party is in a state of disunity.
A viable opposition will not come about if we are disunited. The problem why we only have members in the parliament today is that our house was not in order. We were disunited, and this started back from about 2017 right through the general elections, where we lost terribly, and of course today. We are not going to see the sight of power if this continues.
And that's Philip Paulwell. And in another development this afternoon, an online petition started by Karen Cross and Michelle Stern, a PNP blogger, seemed to be getting a little traction. Up to news time, about 168 people had signed a petition asking for Dr. Peter Phillips to return as its parliamentary leader of the opposition, not as party president, but leader of the opposition.
Should significantly weaken Mark Golding's standing in the party if he's to lose that office of leader of the opposition.
Absolutely, and that we hear is one of the things being considered, whether the 9 MPs who are not in support of Mark Golding should draft a letter and send it to the Governor-General that he no longer enjoys their confidence. As a couple sources have told me, there's a big discussion over that. One, who should they coalesce around? They were thinking first of Julian Robinson. Then Julian Robinson says, no, I'm not a part of that. And I gather now Fitz Jackson, the MP for South St. Catherine, is the name being mentioned. The other issue is among the one PNP faction, I gather, that is considered the nuclear option. Do they really want to go down that route? Because since the mass resignations last Friday, the talk has been PNP mashup. They have been trying to project themselves as protecting the party. If they go down that route, will they be viewed as the one who presided over the funeral rites, the last rites of what has been the PNP? So, big issues, yes? We're turning to political commentator from Western Jamaica, Lloyd B. Smith, Professor of Digital Transformation Policy and Governance in the Department of Government at UWI-Mona, Professor Lloyd Waller, an Assistant Professor of Political Science and Policy Studies at Elon University, Jamaican, a product of that UWI Department of Government, Professor Damian Blake. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Cliff and Tyrone.
Good afternoon.
And fellow commentators.
Good. First of all, Dr. Waller, Professor Waller, your take on what we're seeing and where it goes from here for the PNP.
Well, the PNP now, as far as I'm concerned, resembles a kind of potpourri of competing, perhaps distrustful agents with different philosophies and agendas just into power, and certainly a need for guidance. And for me, this is something that I've been monitoring for the last 2 years, actually, before the election. It would appear that denial, hubris, arrogance, and more importantly, a lack of order or an absence of a requested kind of godfather to mount an intervention to address these competing agents and manufacture some plan of action regarding the way ahead seem to be not happening in the PNP as it has happened in the past with people such as DJ Patterson, St. Lawrence, and so forth. And now more recently, there seems to be an attempt to build. A couple weeks ago, I think I heard Maxine coming out, and then I saw some images on social media that seemed to suggest that there was some attempt at unity, and our attempt to build multiple levels of bridges to address some of these problems. But in addition to that, in addition to all of what I just said, the truth is, and based on the utterances of what I've been hearing from Philip Powell, from other persons who are part of that gang of tribes, this new gang of tribes, it seems as though there is a significant challenge that they have to address the lack of trust among members, broken promises, broken agreements, disagreements, lack of communication, and absence of inequality or equity. And I'm just making these as anecdotal assumptions based on utterances that I have seen. Now, the concern I have, to be quite frank, is that a viable opposition is an important creature for strengthening or ensuring that we have a good democracy. They monitor, they evaluate the role of the government. They play an important role in a system of checks and balances, in addition to the citizenry and the media. So an absence of a viable opposition can only serve a certain democracy.
All right. Hold it there for us, Professor Waller. Professor Blake, your perspective?
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
I think the problems with the People's National Party, they predate now, obviously. I think they go back to the Tinkermiller administration, right? We saw some cracks there, and, the cracks have certainly widened. There has been no kind of transitional leadership that took place in the party, in the closing days of the Tinkermiller administration. And I think deeper than that, the PNP has a twofold problem, right? Originally, the party has been held together by a strong ideological sense of self, and also by some very strong personalities. So we think about the Democratic Socialism project and ideology, and yet the Manley, the PJ, and the Tinkermiller. Now that ideological basis is largely outmoded. It does not fit the current time frame and the kind of needs that the Jamaican society requires. And there isn't that kind of personality that can correlate and bring people together within the party. So I think it's suffering from those two kinds of things. And also, it is the party is largely unattractive. It's become a very unattractive party. I mean, who's supportive of the People's National Party? Certainly, they don't have anything to offer to the expanding Jamaican middle class, who is getting younger, who is more getting increasingly educated, who is traveling, who is social media savvy, who is interested in investments, right? Clearly, it has lost all confidence in the economic and the political elite, if you will, the political class, the capitalist class, CEOs. They have pulled away from them. So from where are they drawing their support outside? So they have an internal problem with themselves, a kind of clash of their identities in themselves, and externally among the Jamaican populace. They are not attracted to anyone except for the base, and even their base is now beginning to say, look, there are some political goods that we require, and this party is largely outmoded. The People's National Party, I think, is still stuck in the 1970s era, the nationalism era. Very important, but political good. If democracy has to be adaptable, and the political goods that the Jamaican people now require, I dare say the People's National Party is ill-equipped to provide those kinds of goods.
Lloyd B? Or Lloyd B?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Well, these two gentlemen have sort of done extensive analysis, but my take from the outset is that the PNP has a systemic problem, and it goes back to 2006 with the emergence of the paper groups, whereby paper groups were used to dictate who becomes a candidate, who becomes a vice president, and indeed who becomes president. That's where it all started. And no attempts have been made over these many years to address that systemic problem. And so we are now in 2021 when, because of various lack in communication skills, in trust, in party discipline, etc., we have a situation whereby we have two PNPs. And it is unfortunate that the leaders, the original leaders, the Portia Simpson, the Peter Phillips, the PJ Patterson, to me have taken a back seat, it would appear, in all of what is happening.
Hold it there for me, Lloyd B.